Hello and welcome to this episode of Unmanned Uncovered. I'm your host Ryan Shaffer, Global Marketing Manager at Consortiq. On this episode, Gareth Beverley, Managing Director at Consortiq, joins the podcast to discuss his path to drone technology, managing a drone company located on 2 continents, the differences between UK and US certifications, and some of the most innovative projects which are sure to take the drone industry by storm. Thanks for joining me, and I hope you enjoyed this interview with Gareth Beverley. So we actually had this interview scheduled for May 4th, but we couldn't do that. Why is that?
Yeah, for me, it's a religious holiday, Ryan. So I absolutely took the day off and watched Star Wars. Yeah, and that sort of thing. No, I'm a huge nerd as well. Star Wars is one of my main passions in life. It always has been since I first saw it. I wore out my first VHS cassette of Star Wars. It broke because I watched it so much. If anyone doesn't know what a VHS is, then thanks for making me feel old.
Do you believe that maybe that obsession with Star Wars brought you into the drone industry eventually? Was it just meant to be?
Oh, I'm not sure. There was a really great crossover between my fandom and my work a couple of years ago now. I went to Star Wars Galaxy's Edge at Disney, and they actually had X-Wings that were drones that they'd made. And we didn't have any hand in it, but it was so cool to see that they'd built scale model X-Wings that they were flying over this park. I was like, yeah, that's like merging what I do and what I love, and one of my fan favorites. So that was a pretty cool moment.
Garf, you're the managing director at Consortiq, in sort of a unique position because you have pieces of the company on 2 continents. What's that been like during the pandemic, especially with a company that requires its employees to go outside and fly drones?
Yeah, we were outside flying drones or inside teaching people how to fly them safely. So both of those have been pretty limited. It's been tricky. I think the hardest thing is trying to maintain that team ethos throughout the whole thing, trying to get people together, and how do you capture the organic chat that people have when they're in an office together virtually. That's been pretty tough, as well as just the whole general situation and not being able to travel.
It's interesting. So there's an office here in the United States, and then we have an office over in the United Kingdom where you're at. What's the difference in terms of what you deliver on the 2 continents?
Predominantly, the UK has always been training focused. We started off in the UK as a CAA approved training entity, and that's where we've done a lot of work over the last few years. And then as we've grown and as we've matured, we branched out into other services that we think better fit our clients' needs and where we see the market going. So really, it was all driven from the UK to start with. And then three-ish years ago, we decided we needed a US office. We worked closely with a couple of companies out of Annapolis, Maryland, and we wanted to be close to them. So we set up an office there. Since then, we tried to do something similar in the US, and the market's very different. The regulations are very different, and that drives different behavior. So we actually had more success in the US with some of the other offerings, really, and enhancements to it. So rather than maybe teaching how to pass your Part 107, it's all about safety procedures, emergency procedures, and things like that, in addition to your 107. And in the UK, it's more, let's train you up to the regulations and sign you off to the regulatory standard for the training. And that's where it all started. But as we've grown, like I said, we've changed tack, and we've branched out into other services. In the US, we're doing a lot of drone as a service work or data acquisition type services, depending on what you want to call it. But where we're out flying for customers, acquiring their data for them, and then either passing it to them or processing it and giving them an output they can use to make decisions. So that's becoming increasingly popular in the US. In the UK, we're doing a lot of consultancy type work and some R&D projects as well, like government funded projects, which are pretty interesting and a bit different. And all this ties together because as we do more R&D new stuff, it comes back into the mainstream of maybe how do you bring that to customers? What are they going to want? How do these things influence each other? And then how do we give our clients the best amount of value from us and from our services that they can get, really?
So I'm a remote pilot here in the United States. You're a remote pilot in the UK. For me, all I had to do was sit down and take a test at the computer. And quite honestly, I didn't even need to own a drone or fly a drone. How is it different in the UK?
Yeah, the UK is really different. So the major thing is that you need a flight assessment or flight skills assessment test to show that you're competent to fly. And that involves having, time on the sticks, as they say, and flight time of a drone. We normally recommend about 2 hours of flight time over the previous 3 months before your flight skills test. Now, it's interesting, the UK regulations did change on the 1st of January to come in line with European regulations. So there's actually two grades of qualification now, and it's only the upper grade of it which has lets you do more with your drone, I suppose is the right way to put it, without constraint. That requires the flight skills test. But the other classification that kind of is a bit more lenient because it's lower risk. You only need to really do the multiple choice test now, but you do have to assert that you are competent to fly a drone. So
essentially what you're saying is you need to learn how to fly a drone in the UK and the US. You just need to learn about airspace.
Yeah, pretty much. Although, obviously, I would thoroughly recommend that they go hand in hand, no matter where you're flying.
Since January, there have been a lot of changes. You've taken on a lot of projects, and Airwards is a big one of those projects. So what is Airwards exactly, and how are you involved?
Airwards is a drone industry specific awards event. At the moment, it's virtual, much as everything else is, unfortunately. But effectively, I was approached by a chap who's actually he's a training candidate, and yeah, he was pitching me the idea of this awards for drones, highlighting drones for good, and how do we have global cross-industry awards that really showcase what people have been doing with drones. We had a long and winding conversation, involved Starwars and beer and all sorts of interesting things. But it was really the idea that I liked, which was the highlighting the drones for good side of things. We often talk about in the industry that we're kind of fighting public perception because people are worried about, you've got to spy on them with your drone and stuff like that. So really, anytime you can talk about the good that people are doing is great. And then there's so much going on in the industry, so much innovation out there. Every kind of day you can go on LinkedIn and just see somebody else has done something brand new involving a drone nearly every day, which is amazing. And it's brilliant to be a part of that. So why I wanted to be involved, and I'm a judge of the awards, is I wanted to be able to sort of give back to the drone industry, really. I wanted to be able to read through these things that people are doing, and just where there was something great or something really innovative about what they did, to highlight that and be able to talk about it and be able to help to reward the people for their efforts. It's just one of those things that came together really nicely. I finished the judging last week. I judged about 44 entries across all sorts of categories, from kind of agriculture / environmental through to unmanned or unified traffic management systems and counter drone systems and all sorts. And that's where some of my background came in really handy. I'm a generalist in some things, but my knowledge of the technology side of it was really useful to be able to think about, well, what is this achieving and how would that work? And it really got some of my ideas going as well about what's out there in the industry and what we could be doing. So another little thing that factors into how do we bring that to our customers, for example. I saw particular entry for something that I think, one of my customers might really like that. And that might be useful to them. So I can go back to them and go, wow, just saw this award. Have you heard of this company? They might be really great to help you guys out with what you want to achieve. Again, having that awareness of what's going on really helps to build up our knowledge and our kind of our value to people as well.
So you're saying that you were born to judge others?
I'm sure some people in the company might say that is a regular occurrence. I don't know. I'm quite objective, I think, sometimes, which is quite funny. A lot of people are saying to me, I don't know how you can judge 40 awards and look through the criterion and not be influenced by something you've judged earlier or what you've done. And yeah, so that was a win. I didn't realize that was a skill people had or didn't have till I did this. But it was a great learning curve. I've not really been involved with that side of things before. And yeah, it was very interesting and quite good fun as well.
So you looked at all of these projects. What are some of the things that you saw that you really thought, wow, this is going to just blow away the drone industry?
I don't think I can be specific because then it might give away some of the award side of things. But there were some really great examples and really niche ones from wildlife protection and using drones to kind of protect certain wildlife out there. And there was a problem with them being hurt and things. And it was something I never heard of before. It wasn't like your typical safari park looking for poachers type example. I say typical, it's typical for what I hear about. It was something different. I was like, wow, that's pretty amazing. That's a problem I didn't know existed. And it was great to see somebody was thinking about, how to solve a problem locally, how to scale that up and do it kind of nationally. Equally, it was great to see some real niche examples that just yielded a tangible benefit for people rather than some of these big things that are big proof of concept and they're going to take years and years to have an impact. There were a couple where they were really niche, but they used a drone in a particular way and they achieved the result. And then that result informed a decision somebody made to do something differently next time. And that was really great. You know me, Ryan, I love data and I love the analytics from it and making data-based decisions. I think, there's a real art to some of that. And that's what was happening, is using the drones not only as just like a thing to do a job, but it's what comes afterwards. It's, well, how does that influence the next thing? And what do you do differently next time? And we kind of talk about that just culture as well. And there's a bit of that, is that continual improvement. That's really what I love. And I love helping other people get there as well. So those are the examples that really excited me.
These companies aren't the only companies moving forward with new drone solutions. So another project Consortiq's working on is Fly2 Plan. What exactly is that?
Fly2 Plan is a project being led by Heathrow Airport, actually, to help modernize and some might say revolutionize some of the air traffic messaging infrastructure based on new technology. So one of the things that's kind of come into focus with the pandemic is kind of obviously the downturn in aviation traffic and then the high cost of maintaining all the systems that support aviation. What it is using technology like digital ledgers, like blockchain, to create a way of securely capturing the messages and the flight plans that airspace users want to log. So what that means is when an airline is going to take off from Heathrow Airport, there's a whole process before that of sending off a flight plan to various agencies across Europe about where that aircraft's going, what time it's leaving, and all sorts of other associated data. And right now, to do that, you have to be part of the special network and have a certain piece of equipment to do it if you're an airline, or you have to go into a website and create this thing via a web portal if you're a general aviation type small aircraft pilot. So what the project wants to do is use new technology to effectively allow anyone to be able to file an authenticated and enhanced version of a flight plan with a lot more information, because drones and aerial taxis and things like that are going to need a higher level of data than aircraft and airlines currently do. So it's all about creating a backbone for that system that allows any user who is trusted, and trust is the key word, so that they're not just any kind of bad actor, to use the cybersecurity type term, who could log on and spam flight messages across this system and shut it down. It's all about you're a trusted party and you can then log your mission plans onto the system and you're approved, and it can handle some of the deconfliction and tie in with some of the UTM systems, tie in with airport systems as well, to allow a seamless kind of handoff between those stakeholders. So it's kind of doing something very different. And at the moment, it's building sort of the proof of concept and building the initial versions that then hopefully we'll be able to support in later on with live trials. This is, again, a project that's come from Future Flight, which is a government-backed funding and project kind of workshop. Like I say, it's led by Heathrow, and we've got people like NATS on there, who are the UK ANSP. We've got IAG, who are one of the airline groups, they own British Airways. And we've got great people from across the drone industry and other people from the manned aviation industry as well, and IT providers and all sorts. So it's a great mix of stakeholders. And Consortiq are one of the two companies who are kind of from the drone industry, and we're helping with what are the use cases going to be at an airport or around an airport for a drone or another unmanned aerial vehicle, including like a flying taxi. What are the use cases going to be there, and how will they interact, and how do we verify pilots currently? And we talked about some of the changes in the regulations, and how does that all factor into this so that that person who's logging a mission is trusted And we know that they're able to fly in that airspace and do all these things. So it's a pretty big project. It's really ambitious. And it's one of these ones that's quite exciting to be around as well. Again, we talked about judging 44 Airwards and having a look at all these different use cases. Well, Flight to Plan, the one I'm involved in, wasn't even there. And that's really exciting to me. Again, that blend of technology and unmanned and manned aviation now as well. I'm able to bring my kind of unique perspective to it. And yeah, it's just really exciting for me to be involved in. It's great. And hopefully, again, it'll go from the current phase where it is with proof of concept into some live trials, and then eventually maybe into a system that's used live or in Heathrow or even around the world. It'd be absolutely amazing.
Get the data that's most important to you and your organisation with unmanned data services from Consortiq. From utility inspections to construction project surveys, our remote pilots will utilise the latest drone technology to give you the most precise and accurate information safely, quickly, and within your budget. Let us do the work for you. Schedule a consultation now at consortiq.com.
So how was Fly to Plan brought to Consortiq, and who was really the brainchild of this entire project?
Came to Consortiq by the guy whose idea it was a chap called Simon Brown. He used to be at Heathrow, and now he's at a company called Tech Tower, who are developing the blockchain platform. And he had a relationship with a chap called Paul Rigby, who's one of our founders, and he's our strategic advisor. And they had a great relationship. They started talking about some of these things. And eventually, when it came to a submission of a project, we put in for a bid against this future flight program. And we were all successful. So just through relationships, really, knowing this guy, Simon, who's, well, a pioneer in the industry, really, to sort of help pull this together. And a little bit of being in the right place at the right time and knowing the right things, I suppose.
So I know that it took a very long time to finally come to fruition. How long exactly?
I think it was probably a couple of years of between initial conversations and starting work. And sometimes that's what happens. You meet somebody, you have an interesting idea, you have a conversation, and then something comes up and you decide you want to try and make that thing concrete and take it forward. So it's just lucky that, like I said, with the future flight kind of program, it enabled us to put in these kind of bids with people for these ideas and these not quite wild and wacky, but some of these more off the wall ideas that maybe we wouldn't have ordinarily been able to do. Fly to Plan's one, work with the of Scilly is another, and then we also had a couple of other bids as well that we put in that unfortunately didn't get selected, but it was a great opportunity nonetheless.
So you mentioned the Isles of Scilly, and that's another project that Consortiq is really tied into. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So the Isles of Scilly are a small group of islands just off of the coast of Cornwall in the UK, and effectively they have trouble getting supplies over. That they normally ship things over on boats, funnily enough, and they take time and they're subject to certain schedules. So using a drone to deliver anything is quite a good opportunity. And the fact then, obviously, with all the kind of coronavirus issues, getting things out to these remote locations, like either testing kits or even PPE, out to these islands, start to become increasingly difficult. And obviously, with a drone, with a certain type of drone, we were using one that I think had like a 15 kilogram payload. That's a lot of face masks, 15 kilograms worth of face masks. So the project kind of came together over a few months, and it was involved. It was brought up part of the kind of UK government. They gave specific funding out to coronavirus type initiatives involving technology, and this was one of the ones that got some funding. And so the idea was to get this aircraft that hadn't been flown commercially before, to set up an area that they were allowed to fly in backwards and forwards from the mainland to the islands, and then get them flying supplies. And along the way, some of the project changed and certain other people were involved. The Royal Mail, our postal delivery service, became involved in the project as well and saw some of the great ideas, and some of the medical people and things were coming together as well. So it morphed slightly, which was absolutely great. And how we were involved was providing consultancy really around how to use the airspace, how to use the tools that the CAA gives you to open up the airspace for these kinds of trials. And that's where where we help things along, and also in a bit of stakeholder management and stakeholder engagement, or talking to the people involved and trying to make sure that, we come up with a good solution together that people are on board with. And it was absolutely amazing to see, these drones flying across the sea, delivering something. And then the additional piece of it is that there's kind of a main route and then there's sub routes as well. And then using different aircraft for the sub routes, which are short haul and maybe don't require so much payload carrying, so much weight. So yeah, absolutely amazing to see how it progressed.
So on that, Consortiq's tagline, Consortiq's why is, we're here to find a better way with drones. How do you think that this entire project is using drones to create a better way? What was the way that they would have had to do this, say, 10 years ago, as opposed to doing it now with drones?
I think they would have relied really heavily on shipping the supplies over, which then means you're subject to kind of all sorts of different logistical issues. So the great thing about the drones is, for the smaller payloads, the smaller amount of weight being carried, you can be much more flexible, and there's speed and there's no safety issues as well. It's not like you're sending a boat full of supplies and there's issues with that. You're flying a drone over. It means you can be more flexible with where they go. Rather than going to the port, it goes to maybe the helipad on the hospital, right where things are needed. So that's how things are better. It's just more flexibility, more options, and makes the logistics of these kind of things easier. But I think the big thing is the next step. Where does it go next? How do you conduct more of these flights more regularly in more locations around the UK? How do we connect up these kind of rural communities, or these communities that are off the mainland, back into the mainland? And especially in these times, like we say, where people are a bit disconnected, and hopefully that's all going to go away. But it's a great opportunity to kind of take advantage of getting people closer together as well, and giving these communities an additional method of getting goods and services to them.
So finally, we talk about Consortiq finding a better way with drones. There's a big project with Consortiq right now, a new service that we're offering. Let's talk a little bit about 3D scans, how they came about, and why it's important to have digital twins made, especially in the United Kingdom right now.
So we were involved with a project with the social housing company, so high-rise residential buildings in the UK. And we were involved in some bids for them to do exterior scan using drones, or even filming, looking at roofs and stuff like that. Pretty simple drone applications. And as we got into it, one of the guys, John, he sort of had this idea of, well, there's loads of other problems here. It's not just about the exterior face of it. What about the interior of the building? And then what about the information about what's going on in the building? And he was hit with this kind of idea of, well, we could tie all this stuff together. And then coupled to that is kind of the UK regulatory push, which is that there was a large fire in one of these residential buildings a few years ago at a place called Grenfell Tower. And that now has spurred on some changes in the UK regulations, which these owners and operators of these high-rise residential buildings need to comply with. And one of those things is that they need digital records of the building. And that includes things like floor layouts, and that includes like, where are the sprinklers, and maybe where are all the electrical sockets and things like that. And at the moment, they don't have one place they can go for that information. They have several sources, and one of the worst is it's on paper somewhere. That just terrifies me. So trying to digitize that is pretty huge. And part of this is this whole move as well to kind of digital companies and digital transformation of traditional business assets and things as well. We talk about high-rise residential buildings. That's where we see some problems that we can help people with. But really, it's a global kind of issue for people. For anyone who operates a building, who needs to kind of maintain that building, how do you do that safely, more efficiently, and sometimes to a higher standard with some sort of autonomous technology than maybe a person taking measurements or going around with a camera and things like that. So that's the genesis idea, and that it's kind of dual pronged, like I said, with the UK regulation side. But we've seen this issue that people are having this, and people want to comply, and we can help them do that. And that's where kind of the genesis of this service is.
So I'm a housing manager. You show up on site. What does the process look like?
So there's a few things we do. Some of it is using terrestrial scanners, which is just a physical piece of kit that goes on a tripod, and that takes scans of the inside of buildings. Uses a technology called LiDAR, which effectively takes really accurate pictures, and they're geotagged and things like that, so that they are you can take measurements from them in virtually. So we use those, and then we also use the drones to do exterior scans. Obviously, as you're flying a drone around, you can take the scan of the exterior building where they're quite tall. Normally, maybe to do inspections, they need scaffolding, and a drone with a high resolution sensor on it can take amazing pictures, so that the surveyor doesn't have to go to every site. The data comes to him. So we use both of those. So effectively, we turn up with a team, and we'd operate the drone, we'd operate the scanner, and then we'd spend a day to a couple of days on site, depending on how we do. Weather, obviously, with drones is a constant factor, especially in the UK and the terrible weather we're having. So we have to plan around that. And then we do those things, we go away, and then we start building the model. And what that means is taking these kind of pictures and these 2D representations and building them into 3D models of the structure. And depending on what level of service we're offering, and depending on what output we want, we can either build a 3D model of the floor plan and the whole building structure. We can merge that with exterior models that the drone's taking the shots for, and then we can tie that in with the internal building information and all the kind of the detail that people need. And what that does is create a single point of truth that is shareable and up to date for anyone who needs it. So a great example would be if there was a building fire, rather than the firefighters having to go to the site office to get the physical folder of the floor plan and kind of all the other information, they'd be able to access that en route from their devices. And then by the time they get there, they'd already know kind of which fire sensor went off first, maybe. They'd already know kind of the route up the building, which fire escapes they could use, couldn't use, and the whole layout of the building. So that immediacy, that accuracy, could potentially save lives, which is pretty amazing when you think about, John sort of just came up with the idea after chatting to a customer one day. Our ideal is to think that hopefully we can contribute to the safety of people who are just trying to live their day-to-day lives, and also make things easier for these managers who are suffering this pain of kind of having to deal with these new regulations and all this kind of issues right now.
And you're talking about firefighting and one firefighter doing it. As I understand, and correct me if I'm wrong, it can be accessed by multiple firefighters at one time. So if you're in a different part of the building, you can also access this information at the same time as someone else on the other side. Absolutely.
Yeah. The example was one, but one firefighter, many stakeholders at the same time. Yeah, that's the beauty of the technology. And you could have many people updating it at the same time as well. And it all creates a collaborative model, which is, again, absolutely amazing.
Let's say Consortiq goes out, they do the scan, you have this digital information forever. But let's say that next year it needs to be updated. What's the ongoing support look like from the Consortiq angle?
So one of the things we really want to do is make this kind of technology accessible to everybody. So rather than you needing to have your own crew who can go off and periodically update, we can effectively provide the service, provide all of this stuff as a service to you. And that will be from the scans and repeated scans as you go, all the way through to kind of the software aspects as well. So rather than having to invest heavily in a particular software that helps you manage this stuff, we're lining up providers and we're coming up with the end-to-end solution so that you don't have to worry about that. All you worry about is the data at the end of it.
So because it's mandatory, it sounds like Consortiq is selling a sort of confidence that not many other companies are able to offer, and selling a product that really would have taken a lot of time, effort, and machinery, quite honestly, to achieve previously.
I think a lot of people are struggling with how to achieve the goal here. Nobody doesn't want to get to this place with digital records of things. I think the problem is maybe they don't know how. And it just so happens that through our kind of our experience and some of the interactions we've had, we can help make that path clearer for them. And, we can provide them various services along the way, from just, doing the scan because we've got good skill at that, all the way through to kind of the managed end-to-end service that repeats for as long as they need it.
So in addition to these scans, what other sort of things is Consortiq doing beyond? Now, it used to be a drone training company, and now it's more toward consultation drone service company.
On the consultation side, what we're doing is helping people to map out their drone use and helping them map their requirements to the use of the drone. Is it the right tool for them? If it is, which one or what do they need to do to achieve their aims? Can they do that under the legal framework wherever they're located? Those are the kind of questions we help people answer, because it's complicated and it takes time. And what we found is people can either struggle to find their way through it themselves, or they can talk to experts and get the answer they need quickly to figure out, is this something worth pursuing? So that's the first part of it. And then the next part is, okay, well, what do they want to achieve? And can we demonstrate some benefit for them that maybe they don't have the capability to do themselves? So proof of concept of these things. So we speak to a customer and they do want to fly drones, and we figure out, that's all. We're able to do that. You would be able to do that. You just need, certain requirements. And I said, okay, well, before we go down that road, we want to really see what the output would be. And part of our drone services, our data acquisition services, is helping them get that up front so that they can really see what a drone would do for them and how it could impact their business before they go quite far down the road there. And then we help them scale it up. So once they have that proof of concept and they want to want to invest in drone technology, we can train all their pilots. We can provide additional support and help them with their operations manual and their safety side of things, and then provide them with kind of managed services if they need it to look at their assets. And the data acquisition side as well, it's not just about the 3D modeling, but also mosaics, which are 2D, and they're measurable, stitched together photos effectively, using those for certain applications where they're needed, to help people on the ground, doing volumetric scans. So you've got a big pile of building aggregate and you want to know how much is in that pile one day, and you're not monitoring in a particular way. Drones are able to see things from a different perspective and kind of do things in a more, I want to say, efficient way, but maybe that's not necessarily what works out as connotations, but certainly quicker and maybe with a higher degree of accuracy that's possible by the normal means, manual means. The beauty of drone technology is there are loads of applications of it. Like I said, judging the Airwards, I saw 44 different applications of drone technology, which is absolutely amazing. I think the problem is that then you get almost paralysis by analysis of maybe what you want to do. And, companies and the people we work with, some of them have been down a rabbit hole of, getting into an idea of what they needed for a job. And where we try and help is say, okay, well, what are you trying to achieve? What's the output you need at the end of it? And then we say, well, is a drone the right tool for you? And if it is, then we can help you use that tool and develop your skills so that you can operate confidently and safely, and get the data you need out of it, rather than maybe investing in some technology you don't need, the wrong technology, and then you're not competent or you're not confident, and the whole program stalls, and before you know it, you've invested a lot of money in something that hasn't yielded something at the end of it. That's what we really try and do.
Well, Gareth, Garf Beverley, thank you for joining the show. It was great talking with you today, and I hope we can do this again.
Definitely, I think we should. I maybe won't rig up so much of my camera equipment next time, but yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, so talking about that a little bit, we've both spent quite a bit on camera equipment this year. Why goes back to being nerds. That's just what we do, and we have to have the technology. Maybe it'll pay off, maybe it won't, but we like it. So just, our wives probably don't, but we do. So that's what matters.
Absolutely. It's shiny technology, and I'm sure there's a work-related benefit in there somewhere. I'm just yet to find it.
Hey, take care, Garth. And that's all for this episode of Unmanned Uncovered. Make sure to join us next time as we continue to navigate all of the innovation that the drone industry is providing. Thanks for listening and take care.